You're listening to The Problem with Poverty, a podcast that helps bring awareness to the causes and consequences of poverty, as well as ways that we can overcome the problems with poverty together. Our company, Community Action Partnership of North Alabama, serves 28 counties in our beautiful state. According to 2019 estimates by the U.S. Census, Alabama was the 7th poorest state, with 15.5% of its residents living in poverty, as compared with a U.S. average of 11.1%. Our goal with this show is to highlight all of the opportunities that we and our partners have to help people overcome poverty as we focus on helping people, changing lives.
Welcome to the Problem with Poverty podcast. I'm your host, Holly Hicks. Today we're speaking one-on-one with board member Trae Norrell. Trae Norrell currently serves on CAPNA's Board of Directors representing the private sector for Cullman County. Trae is the branch manager and a broker at Byers Wright Insurance in Cullman, Alabama. Welcome, Trae.
Thank you, Holly. It's great to be here and look forward to our discussion today.
As do I. We'll kick it off with a simple question. Share with us how your journey with CAPNA began.
Absolutely. In 2018, I was serving as the chairman of the board of a nonprofit in Cullman called the Link of Cullman County. And we had a fundraiser event where I had a chance to kind of be the MC and do some things during that event. And I met Tim Thrasher and said, Tim, I know your involvement with Community Action Partnership, and as a board chair who's 28 years old, I have some questions. And so I asked Tim to go to lunch, and honestly, he has been a resource for me in the last few years, and especially during that time with the Link, but more so than that, just became a friend. And so after a few months of knowing Tim and kind of him being a resource and a friend, had an opportunity to serve as an advisor to the board, and then later on that year, actually being on the board to represent Cullman for CAPNA.
And you mentioned being advisor. How is that different on CAPNA's board than being a member?
Honestly, there's not a ton of difference just from showing up and being a part of a group. I didn't feel any less involved as an advisor than I did as a board member. Then obviously it comes down to voting and being present for that. But as a board member, I feel a little bit more responsibility, and I think that's a good thing. Would
you say that being an advisor prepared you better than just jumping in with both feet as a member?
Absolutely. Nobody really tells you what that full picture looks like. And so when you walk in your first time, even as an advisor, you're drinking from a fire hose. I mean, there is a lot to that agenda, and there's a lot of moving parts to this organization. And so it absolutely prepared me to be a great board member, I think.
Good to hear.
Yep.
Next question, I would like to ask you to explain what the Board of Directors does as a nonprofit board serving communities with low incomes.
The Board of Directors is an interesting term. When I think about it, are you a Seinfeld fan, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. I always picture George standing in front of Mr. Steinbrenner and that long table and all those suits, and you think, man, this is the Board of Directors of a bank or a sports franchise. But in reality, it's made up of diverse men and women from all types of backgrounds, whether that's professionals, retirees, mothers, fathers, and everything in between. And so that whole group is such a wonderful team to be a part of, but also recognizing, as a board member, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that.
So you feel the weight of that as a member?
I do. And I think that's a healthy weight. I don't think anyone should serve on a board if they're not willing to take on really what the organization's all about. My duty as a board member, yes, is to provide strengths and to be exactly who really God has made me to be in that situation, but also to support the organization. We're not Regions. We're not the Yankees. We are CAPNA, and we are put in the communities that we serve, and that's a good thing.
So as a professional in the insurance industry, what role does the proper insurance coverage play in the operations of a nonprofit business like Community Action? And since you're a board member, but you also bring that knowledge, how do you incorporate that into the day-to-day as a board member and as CAPNA's, I would say, insurance advisor?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. As a professional, I view insurance in really two avenues. You've got insurance placement, and then you've got risk management. On the insurance placement side, it's it's really making sure those coverages are there. And I say as a professional because in my role, you are trusting the assets of this whole organization that I'm and my team are doing our job right. And so it's not, I think we get a bad name in our industry of just being sales heavy but really my desire and from day one has been to be a partner in that. So that insurance placement is so important and the coverage is. But the second avenue of that as a professional would be that risk management piece. And I always like to tell this story. Have you ever seen or been in a bank vault by chance?
Yes.
Okay. So when you walk in your bank, that's like your focus. And I have a partner in Birmingham that is another nonprofit that we get to service and just be a part of their team as well. That actually their building is made out of an old bank. And so they toured us around and showed us this vault. And so when I think about the vault, it's one of those things that I think people equate to insurance, meaning you may hear a phrase, well, we've got insurance for that, or, well, we always have insurance. And I guess I would ask the question of your bank, even though the vault's there, do they lock the doors when they leave at 5:30? Most likely. I hope so. Do they turn the lights on, the security system, and make sure they're taking all those steps? And I guess my question would be why you have a vault. It's the same question when it comes to insurance. Risk management is the lights being turned on. It's the doors being locked. It's yes, having that vault of insurance in the background, but really preventing anyone from ever opening it or getting to it, if you will.
So what are some specific areas of concern or liability that nonprofits like CAPNA need to know about? Are there new threats? Are there less known threats?
The insurance industry is fluid, meaning it changes every day. It changes every day. There are emerging risks. Really, the last couple of years, I think I could pinpoint cyber security and cyber insurance and risk management being really at the forefront. I feel like several years ago, maybe even a decade ago, if you were a defense contractor, if you were a large bank, if you were in certain industries, you kind of felt a little pressure. In 2023, if you have a website, if you have an email address, you're at risk. And so there's two ways of managing that risk. Doing away with email and websites or properly managing that risk with MFA and insurance policies and all that. So that's probably the number one at the top of the list when it comes to emerging risk or current risk.
What is MFA for those of us who aren't familiar?
Multi-factor authentication.
That's when I have to put in a code you send me to get into what I need to get into.
That is true. So, for example, my email right now is on that. And every once in a while, I'll have to either receive a code or a text message where I fill in where it's more than one avenue of protection and security.
Perfect. So what do you believe is the most important part of your role as a member of CAPNA's Board of Directors?
I think that's a great question. The longer I've thought about it, I think the more simple my answer has become, really to support the staff. And what I mean by that is whether it's the executive leadership team, whether it's any given employee or a substitute, a part-time substitute for the Head Start program, as board members, our focus and commitment needs to be those who have committed their lives to fighting poverty on the day-to-day base level. And so my job as a board member is not to bring in these innovative and let's really turn the ship this way. It's to be a part of an organization that supports its employees and the communities that we're in and really, if I could summarize, be a support system for the overall organization and its mission.
I love that answer. What are some specific board events, discussions, and decisions that stand out to you as a board member and why?
When I think about decisions, just from a general standpoint, here's what I love about CAPNA. Every decision is met with discussion and an understanding of both sides. And honestly, I think that's rare in our day, especially in 2023. We've lost the ability to disagree and to still smile and like each other. And I don't know why. We can have different beliefs and we can have different opinions when it comes, especially in the state, to sports teams or the way things are done. But as far as a board goes, being able to be on the same page, but also hearing different voices and different opinions, I think is so healthy for an organization. Things that I think specifically about events, NeighborWorks Week is always something we look forward to, and the second year being in Cullman this year, to bring it to my community has been a really powerful thing to be a part of, and it connects the community and different organizations, and so that would be, as far as events go, something that sticks out. I'm looking forward to the leadership conference coming up in January with the board as well.
And this question, I'm anxious to hear your answer, because I would like to know what you think CAPNA's footprint will look like in 3 years, 5 years, and even 10 years from now.
I love this question, Holly, because I believe if you would have asked me 3, 4, 5 years ago where the organization would be today, I think I would have underestimated even the last 5 years of growth. So I think for the future and that 3, 5, 10 year range, I think we'll continue to see the support for the communities that we're in, but I can see us expanding some of those boundaries and getting in areas that maybe we're not in today, that we really had no expectation of being in, but have that opportunity to serve different communities. One thing really about the future that I love about CAPNA, I love the executive team, the leadership, and the way that they have recognized not only the position, but the person who fills those positions within the organization and the future of those next generation of leaders. And so I look forward to seeing, even in the future, of people being that have been with the organization, being in different roles and growing in their capacity as an individual, but also to support the mission of this organization. I always think about with nonprofits, because you can kind of even get sideways on a good thing. And what I mean by that is some organizations would say, you know what, we've hired all these people to support the mission of the organization. And I would argue CAPNA does a really good job of taking the mission of the organization and allowing it to walk hand in hand with those employees and carrying that out.
Without a mission drift.
That's right.
That's what we want to avoid.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
As a member of the leadership team, I will speak on behalf of everyone else to say thank you and the other members for the support, because we can feel that when you're in the meetings and when you speak and when you respond. So thank you for that service. So we want to move to some listener FAQs and see what your perspective might be on this. How would you respond to the question, what does someone living in poverty have to do with me, and why should I care?
My day-to-day is filled with different hats that I wear. And I enjoy each one of those. One of those hats is I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for 9 years at Grace Chapel Community Church in Cullman, and honestly, that's a hat I never take off. So in regards to that question, and especially in regards to faith, I'll have to answer that by saying, if I truly believe the Bible's correct, and I truly believe what God says about individuals, every single person is made in the image of God. And so we're not talking just about high-level issues. We're talking about individuals with a soul and individuals who are image bearers of God. Many times when we have this conversation, or society has this conversation, we'll use, and I'll even use air quotes, we put it in the realm of issues. And it's so easy to look out with issues and to dehumanize issues. And I guess the overall, if I could really drive home one point, is we're not talking about issues when it comes to poverty. We're talking about people. We're talking about families. And so truly understanding that with a different mindset, I think, is important for our organization day to day, where it's not numbers. It's not just, hey, we did X, Y, and Z. It's, no, we got to help fill in the blank name after name after name. And to me, that's what it's all about.
So, Trae, I would like to ask, what impacts can one individual make on their community by volunteering for local events or serving on the board of a nonprofit agency like you do?
I think there's so many answers to this question, but for the sake of time and the sake of this discussion, I want to put it in 3 categories. And the first one is can be faux pas in today's world, but financial support. I mean, supporting organizations in your local community is very important. And you may say, well, Trae, I don't have all the money. You don't know my situation. You're right, I don't. And I'm not asking you to to necessarily write a check with a bunch of commas in it. But what I am saying is, though there are many organizations that depend on public support, that and I've been in that seat. I've been in organizations where you look and say, we really need a good month. We really need public support. And so I'll say this to any families out there, whether it's $100 a year or $50 a month or whatever it is, a local organization feels that impact. So not only financial support, but I think connecting people. I can think back to about a year ago, I got a call from a large big box retailer in the Cullman area, and they were wanting to donate a large amount of apparel that was brand new, that because of COVID had been delayed and had been pushed back, and so they were sitting with really truckloads and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of apparel that needed to go to a good place, and they were wanting to donate it. And so I called an organization and said, hey, this is what we've got going on. Any interest? And they said no. That's not really kind of in our mission, but let me connect you with another organization. And so it wasn't just my picking up the phone and calling, but it was an organization who said, that doesn't really fit our mission right now, but I know whose mission it does fit. And so you see that impact of connecting people when it comes to the community. I think is so important. It's free. It's free to say, hey, can I introduce you to my friend Holly? I think y'all would really like each other. I think y'all have some things in common that could benefit you both. So obviously financial and then connecting people. And this third one, I like to talk about incarnational service. And what I mean by incarnational is shoulder to shoulder. So organizations, including CAPNA, have opportunities for you to serve and to, I mentioned Neighbor Weeks, just to be incarnational about living, meaning I am in the same room, breathing in the same air, whether that's a community meal, whether that's sitting in front of you and just saying a simple question, tell me about your life. Tell me what got you to this place. Tell me what's something that I need to know about you. And I think people can get in ruts where we are maybe siloed or really just individualized people, where I really believe at the heart of humanity is kind of this incarnational living, where we're meant to be around other people. So,
your answer to that question fulfilled our entire name with community and action and partnership. So I want to hear one last reply from you, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Who holds the responsibility for helping those living in poverty reach self-sufficiency? Individuals, the government, the community, or all three?
I would say yes, and all three. I've talked a lot about the individual's responsibility, I feel like, in my answers today of what we can do as board members, as community members, and that really individual focus, I think goes without saying. When it comes to the government, we see kind of the funding models across our state. There's grant money that is coming into the state from a federal level and a local level and a state level that we have been entrusted to as an organization. And so to use those funds in a wise way to impact the communities, I think is so important, to be able to take the resources that are in front of us and to expand. And ultimately, if the goal is fighting poverty, it's putting in those systems that say, how do we pull a family out of generational poverty? How do we redirect someone, whether it's bad decisions or bad circumstances, to say, there's a way that we can come as an individual through, whether it's government funding, that ultimately will bring to the third category, the community. The community is made up of individuals. It's made up of churches, other organizations that really have a common interest, not just in, profit or making money or whatever that is, but in the interest of the community. I want my community to do well. I love my community. And so to be able to take all three of those and let all three aid each other, where they fit together like a glove, that you can say, you know what, we're fighting poverty and we're doing it these ways and using the resources we have at our hand.
Fantastic. Trae Norrell, thank you for joining us for a special one-on-one with a board member.
Absolutely. Holly, thanks for having me.
Thank you.